So now that the setup for our project is complete, we are currently in the Figma file here, which is provided to you through the link in the description down below. Also, we have the code repository here, which also is provided for you down in the description. We actually work on creating this repository with every image that we will need for this project. And yeah, we're going to be continuing here working on the HTML code for this website. We're going to be starting right away here. Now, you can see that we don't have an HTML file. And the question might be, where do we put our HTML file? Should we create a separate folder, or could we just put it out in the open? And the answer is, it depends on the sort of project, but I'm gonna be talking about this project that we are currently making using vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And when the deployment time comes, deployment basically means launching your website for everybody to be able to view. When that time comes, you would want your primary HTML file to be able to be read by the server that will be deploying or hosting your websites. So most servers have a convention that they use to identify the entry HTML file or the primary HTML file, which will be the homepage of your website. So that's that HTML file will have the name index.html. Now we have talked about the test command here. The test command basically creates a file in the current directory, which is the astrology sign root directory. And by just clicking enter, we are creating the index.html file here. Now we're just going to be closing this terminal since we're not going to be using it for today. And here we have an index.html file. Just know that the .html extension belongs to HTML files, obvious, and the index name indicates the home page or the indexed page as it used to be known. So the index.html is just by convention the primary HTML file that the server will be looking for when deploying. So we have this the file. So how do we start? First of all, I'm going to click exclamation mark, then enter. Now, if you're working on another text editor, like maybe Atom, Notepad, maybe Notepad++, anything else, this won't work. This code will not be generated. This only works because I'm in VS Code, and this is called image abbreviation for VS Code. But you can just retype this. Just pause the video and type this out, or you can find the source code down below in the description, so you can just copy from there. But I'm just going to explain some of this code right here. First of all, we have the doctype HTML tag. This just indicates the version of the code here, the HTML code. Now, obviously, programming languages or coding languages do have versions, right? So just like a game would have version 1, and this will be updated to version 2, 2.1, 2.2, 3. And the same way, a programming language, in this case, this is not an actual programming language. HTML is known as hypertext language, or you can just call it a coding language. In this case, it does not doctype.html. Actually, this specific tag just indicates that we are using the version 5 of HTML, which is telling the browser, hey, take this file and from now on just use the HTML5 sort of the HTML5 version syntax to interpret it into the browser. Great. So we have set that up, and next we have the HTML with the lang attributes. This HTML is just a wrapper. Everything that will be written as part of our HTML code will be written inside of this HTML wrapper here. So this would be just wrapping our primary code here. Now we also have this, which is called an attributes. Now we also have an attribute here, but this is just convention. You don't have to think about this. When we talk about this attribute right here, it just tells the browser that the current HTML page is written in English. Also, there is US English, UK English, but we can just say English. Yeah, since we're our website, if you take a look at it here, it is written in English. Next, we have two elements, right? We had the head and the body. Now, the head is for elements that won't be directly shown in the body of our HTML. Instead, we use the head to talk to the browser and search engines. Now, consider this. We have a title here. Let's call this astrology site. And I'm actually going to save this and right click here and click open with live server. And that's from the extension here. If I just search live server, you can see I've already installed it and activated it. So yes, we will be using this live server extension. And if I click open with live server here, it should take a minute and it should start up on port 500 here. And okay, it is opening in a different browser. I will be using Chrome for this. Okay, yeah, so it is actually running on port 5500. We can actually just do it from there directly. I'm just gonna open up Chrome here and I'm gonna get in on guest mode because we don't really need anything for this. And we can actually just go to port localhost on port 5500. Now for you, this should probably just open up on Chrome. I changed my default browser to Zen, so that's why it didn't automatically open it in Chrome. For you, it should work as normal, as usual. And we are currently on localhost 5500. And you can see here, it says astrology sign, which is the name of our website. Great. Now, this means our browser and our website, our code is communicating through the head here. Everything in the head will be used to communicate with the browser. Now, you can see some meta tags. These are meta tags just basically give more information to the browser. Currently, we have two meta tags. The first one is charset UDF8. This just tells that we are using UDF8 characters, which are just basically the default English characters. H, T, M, E, A, B, C, D. These less than and greater than signs, this exclamation mark, equals, quotations, everything you see here is listed under the UTF-8 convention. Next up, we have this long line of code. This basically just tells our browser to keep the default width of our website, and you don't really have to understand what that is currently. Just know that we can go to inspect here, and if we click here, we can view our websites in different modes. So this just communicates with our browser and tells it just keep the default widths and heights, just resize them, and not really create new sort of uh, new dimensions outside of the screen. It's a bit complicated to really talk about currently, but just don't worry about it. Just know that some of this code that I'm going to be showing you just has to be there. You don't really need to completely understand it. Sometimes in programming, it just has to be there. Okay, great. So we can now move on. Now, how do we go about creating something like this? Now, this might seem intimidating, and very hard to master. But how do we go about actually doing it in a simple way? And I'm going to be showing you a very simple way of doing it throughout this course. The first thing that we're going to be needing here, let me just take a minute here to duplicate this. And I'm just going to lock this layer so I can just not interact with it. Okay. So for today, let's try to create the HTML for the nav bar here, right? Okay. So how do we start? Uh, the first thing you have to understand is there are two ways of writing HTML. You can write it in a semantic manner or in just a regular block manner. What does that mean? A block manner basically means that you can use a div or a paragraph tag to write everything, right? Uh, but a semantic manner means you will use the appropriate elements to create the appropriate sort of visuals. Now, both actually work, but semantic is much more preferred. Why is that? Uh, First reason, semantic tags give you more accessibility. For example, if somebody is using uh, uh, for visually impaired people, if they are using a screen reader, then if you do everything in a div, there won't be any separation in the way the screen reader reads your content. But if you use semantic tags like h1, then something like p, and links like a, and buttons with button here, if you use these sort of tags, then the reader will actually give them the proper sort of sounds, and it will make it life easier for people who are using screen readers and other accessibility modes. So that's very important to make a website as accessible as you can. The second thing is that you will need to make your life simpler by just using easy to use semantic tags. Let's say you want to create a button, right? So we can just say button and let's say submit. Let's just save it. And when I save it, actually, you can see in the browser, it automatically just creates the submit button, which is pretty cool. So we don't have to refresh it. So if you are using live server, if you don't, you have to save it here and refresh here. But since I'm using live server, I don't really have to refresh. So I can make it just makes it easier. Now I have the submit button here and I can click on it. I can interact with it. When I hover, there is a sort of a difference. If I have a form, when I click submit, it will submit the form to whichever server I specified. So it has so many good features, right? But let's say I just want to create a submit button on my own. I can just create a div here and nothing. It's not styled. When it can't be clicked currently. When I click it, nothing happens. I just have to recreate that functionality from scratch. So that's not good. So you have to use semantic tags. And HTML has many tags, many tags over like I'm not sure even the number. There are many tags, and most of them you're not going to be using it for the rest of your life. I assure you. Like most of them you will not come across. But I'm going to be trying to share throughout this course the tags that you are going to be working with heavily. So let's just start out and go one by one over the tags and over how we will actually be structuring our HTML. First thing to note is that everything in HTML is a rectangle. Let me just create a rectangle here. Let me just remove its fill and give it a stroke. I want to make it red. I'm gonna make it a bit bigger here. Okay. Now you can see there is this image, the logo, and there is this astrology sign, which is the brand's name. So both of these elements are just simply so not squares, rectangles. If I duplicate this and bring this over here, this is also a rectangle. If I go over here, now you have this title. Now this title as a whole is a rectangle. Now, since we are separating this date of birth element into a different color, that means this date of birth alone itself is its own rectangle. You can see how this goes. Everything in HTML is a rectangle. Even when you see these rounded edges, even when you see these shapes, right? Everything is still a rectangle. So think of it in that way. I'm just going to take everything here and remove them for now since we don't need them. And I'm going to think of them all as rectangles. And what I like to do in HTML is start out by laying all our elements out. So for example, today we're going to be working on this nav bar. So we have one element, two elements, three elements, right? So I'm just going to put them down. I'm just going to put them straight into the HTML. I'm not going to be styling them. I'm not going to be making them side by side here. I'm not going to be structuring anything. I'm just going to take these elements and just put them in our HTML file. And you'll see why as we keep on going, we're going to make them work better. So let's start with the image. For images, use the ing tag. Now the ing tag has two attributes. Attributes are basically properties of an element that tells HTML how to render that element. So let's start with the alt attribute. The alt attribute is just used for screen readers, right? Images, obviously, people using screen readers, visually impaired people, can't really see the images, right? So we can use the alt here to give them a description of the image. And this is very simple. I'm just going to say a star, a blurry star, indicating astrology science logo. Instead of indicating, I'm going to say representing. So this will just give people using this a simple sort of identification. Now, one thing about HTML is HTML uses trimming, meaning if I have one space, it will just assume that I'm using one space. But if I have something like this, HTML won't really know the difference. So HTML would just assume that I only want one space. Now there are ways over it, but this is the default behavior. So this means we can separate our code into different lines to make it easier to work with. Great. So for the source, we have the logo in assets brand logo.svg. So how do we get it into the actual website? Okay, think of what I told you in the terminal section, right? So how do we move? Using dots, stuff like that, right? So very simple. So currently we are in the astrology sign. Since like we are on the HTML file, index.html, which is on the root. Now we want to get inside of the assets folder. So we could just say assets. Great. Now we got inside of the assets folder. Now we have two folders, but we want to get inside of the brand folder. We want to say /brand. Great. We want to now go inside of the brand folder. We did. Okay, great. Now we have this logo.svg and we want to get that. So how do we get that? We want to say /logo.svg. So this means we are completely ready. If you just follow this link, it will take you to this file right here with the file content shown as this our logo, okay? Basically. Great. So if we now save and go to uh, the website, you can see that it is showing, but it is fading away since the edges are white and we did not change the background color of our website. So currently it's not too visible, but no problem. The most important thing is that we got it onto our website. Great. So we can continue. What next do we have? The next rectangle is this astrology signs. Okay, great. So how do we get this? What tags should we use? What I tend to do for like text that is very small, somewhere many times just a word or two. What I tend to do here is I want to make them uh, very much into a span. A span is basically just an element that represents a very small amount of text. Now, if I have so many text, very large, like lorem 400, if I have this much text, I would want to use a paragraph. But this is very simple, just a single word. So I'm just going to say astrology sign. Okay, great. At this point, with this point here, uh, we have, okay, let's just save it. We have a problem. We got those two elements in, but they are not functional. Most of the time, when you click on the identity section, which is this one, the logo and the name, you will be transferred into the home page. Now, since we already only have one page, it really doesn't matter. Uh, but just to be accurate, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make both of these clickable links. Now we can do it this way. We use the a href or anchor href tag to go slash. This slash basically indicates the root being the index.html. So if I do this, okay, sorry, if I do this and if I actually put this inside of the index.html file, what will happen is basically that this image will be clickable. If I go to the website here, now you can see my mouse cursor changes, and if I click, I'm transferred back into the first page. And since it's the same page, it doesn't really show. But now I want to do the same thing here. Now instead of saying a href and adding it here as well, I can just take this and move it up. By the way, I'm moving these lines using Alt. So hold Alt and up and down arrows, and I will just move it. So now both of the image and the span here will be inside of the link, and the link will have an href telling it to go to the home page. The slash is inside of the href. The job of the href is basically to tell the browser where to go on the buttons, on the links click. So here you can see it's changed. This is semantic HTML because semantic HTML, like A, for example, the anchor tag changes the visuals, making it obvious that this is a link. Now, obviously, next time we're going to be changing it. We're going to be changing how the link looks. But it's just cool that HTML does this for us to show or to indicate that this is a link. Also, this hover, this pointer also comes because this semantic type, and that's another use. Instead, we should have had to just do it in CSS, program the hovering icon and stuff, but since we are using semantic HTML, it does it all on its own. Okay, next up, let's move here, and I'm gonna add this little section here. Uh, this was I think this was something made as a part of a school project. So yeah, I'm just gonna include that. It really doesn't add too much difference, but instead I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna say made by Web Studio, right? So I don't remember when I designed that file. It's been a long time. Uh, yeah, I'm just going to say here now, since it's a small text, I can just add span here, right? So made by Web Studio. It's like a couple of words. I'm just going to assume this is a span. And I'm just going to say made by Web Studio, the name of the channel. Okay, great. Right, so I'm just going to save this. I'm going to go back here. You know what? I'm just going to keep it the same here. No reason really to change it. Made by 12 level A students. Group, okay, group 6. Let me just keep it the same. I just wanted to make this as authentic as possible because I really want the design to be completely translated over. It doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. Okay, so great. We have now this text here, and you can see everything side by side, but it's not how it's supposed to be. And it's fine. It's totally fine. We're not styling anything. We're just trying to make the code translation smooth as possible. Now we can end it here today. I think that's enough if you work on this here. But I remember I forgot to put this accent into the website, so into the package here. Uh, yeah, so maybe you should just enter that. I'm just gonna go to export. Uh, should I now take this as a PNG or an SPG? Now this will be scaled. I think this will be uh scaled too much, so I really don't want to ruin it using a PNG. So I'm just gonna decide to make it an SPG. So I don't know the extent to how much it will scale since it takes over the screen size, and most screen sizes could be very small or very big. So yeah, let's just export this. Uh, and we're just gonna be exporting it. Okay, sorry here. Let's just go to our project again. It is, I think it's projects, astrology side, right? And assets here. Great. Now we can go to brand. I didn't know. Okay. It's just accents. Accents are basically shapes and colors that just make the website look more fun here. I'm just going to give them their own separate folder, and I'm just going to say hero accent, home accent, actually, home accent. That is VG. I'm just going to save it there, and here you should see under accents here, home accents. Great. So now we have this sort of cutoff accents here, which will be scaled and it will work very nicely. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you guys are really enjoying and getting value out of this course. Next time, we're going to be continue with the homepage HTML. But before that, I forgot something here. Really sorry. But we need to commit our code. Since we already have this code changed, we should commit it to Git. So I'm just going to say git add all the changed files, the additional files, git commit with a message. Now I'm just going to say setup basic HTML, right? Now git push, we don't do origin main here because we already did that one time. We can now just say git push. And now we committed our code to the repository, but now we are pushing it. So when you go down the description and click the link to go to the repo here, you will just find the updated code. Okay, great. Everything is ready. Now we can just move on next time to more of the HTML. Thanks for watching. Meet you next time.